Quick quiz for you. We're talking global conflict, strategic aggression. Why did Russia invade Crimea? Is the answer A, Putin is crazy, B, they're trying to rebuild the Soviet Union, or C, they are scared of a flat field?
Well, that's a fascinating way to frame it. I mean, the constant narrative you hear in the news, it always revolves around the leader's personality, right? Or this, grand historical desire for a lost empire.
Exactly.
So I guess I'd have to go with A or B based on what you typically hear.
And that's what most people would say. But let's unpack this, because the answer, according to the sources we're diving into today, especially Tim Marshall's incredible book, Prisoners of Geography, is emphatically C.
Scared of a flat field.
Scared of a flat field. It's a reaction born from a fundamental visceral geographic fear. That invasion is a direct consequence of the North European plain. Welcome to Nonfiction Insights.
Our mission today is to show you that leaders are, in many ways, prisoners of the mountains, rivers, and oceans that dictate their strategy.
By the end of this deep dive, you won't look at a map the same way again.
It's a powerful idea. It shifts your focus from, temporary politics to these permanent, fundamental constraints. Leaders and ideologies come and go, but the Himalayas are always there.
Okay, let's start right there with Russia and this panic of the plain. If you imagine Europe as a kind of pizza slice, you'll see the North European plain is narrow in the west, near France.
Right, which makes it easier to defend.
Much easier. But as you move east, that slice just gets wider and wider.
And by the time you hit Russia's borders, you're talking about a plain that's over 2,000 miles wide. It's completely flat, all the way to Moscow. There are no natural barriers, no mountains, no major rivers.
And that single geographic fact explains so much of their history. Russia has just been relentlessly invaded. We're talking about the Poles, the Swedes, Napoleon in 1812, the Germans twice in the last century.
The trauma of that is baked into their national psyche, and invasion on average once every 30 or so years between Napoleon and World War II, that creates a kind of strategic paranoia.
It creates the panic of the plain. I love the analogy Marshall uses for this.
The goalie analogy. It's perfect. If you're a goalie and the net is 5 feet wide, you can defend it. But if that goal is 2,000 miles wide, you panic.
You can't just stand there.
You can't. Your only option is to push forward. You have to move out to plug the gap. That's why Russia feels it must have a buffer zone, countries like Ukraine, Belarus, to create strategic depth.
And that depth is all about logistics. It's about forcing an invading army's supply lines to get so long, so stretched out, that they become vulnerable long before they reach the Russian heartland.
And this need for a buffer connects directly to Russia's other huge geographic vulnerability.
The warm water problem.
The warm water problem. It's been their Achilles heel forever. They desperately need ports that don't freeze.
So walk us through that. Where can their fleet actually operate from?
Well, if you look north, their Arctic ports like Murmansk are frozen solid for months every year. And in the east, Vladivostok is ice-locked for about 4 months.
And even when it's not frozen, to get out of Vladivostok, their ships have to sail right through the Sea of Japan.
Which is basically controlled by Japan and the U.S. Navy. So, as a global power, it prevents their fleet from operating year-round. It's like trying to breathe through a straw.
Which brings us right back to our opening quiz, and to Crimea.
Exactly. Sevastopol in Crimea is Russia's only true major warm water port with any real capacity. It's their only nostril. It gives them year-round access to the Mediterranean and from there, the rest of the world.
So losing control of that port, or having it fall into the hands of a pro-Western government that might, say, host a NATO base there.
It's seen as an existential threat. It's not just about politics for them. It's about basic economic and military survival.
And that contrast is just stunning when you look at the U.S. If Russia got the worst hand in the geographic poker game, America basically got God mode.
They won the lottery. It's almost unfair. Just look at the Mississippi River Basin. It has more miles of navigable river than the rest of the world combined.
Think about that. That's free infrastructure.
It's a free, natural conveyor belt. The basin is so flat you can float a soybean or a piece of coal from Ohio all the way down to New Orleans for almost nothing. In Russia or Africa, building that kind of transport link would cost a fortune in rail.
So from day one, their internal economy was supercharged. They could easily link their agricultural heartland to the global markets through the Gulf of Mexico.
And then you look at their borders, 2 massive oceans acting as, giant moats, and their neighbors.
Canada's frozen north and Mexico's deserts to the south. Not exactly threatening invasion routes.
The early American leaders were smart, and they were fast. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803, the treaty with Spain just 16 years later, boom, they became a secure, two-ocean superpower almost overnight.
So, as Marshall puts it, geography made it almost impossible for the U.S. to be poor.
And that's only getting truer now with their energy independence. Fracking and offshore drilling mean they don't have to worry as much about guaranteeing oil flows from, say, the Middle East.
Which lets them pivot their entire strategic focus toward the Pacific.
Speaking of the Pacific, let's talk about China. Because we see this massive economic superpower, but our sources argue that geopolitically, the dragon is in a cage.
But they're a huge landmass, over 1 billion people.
Economically, yes, a superpower. Geographically, they're trapped. Now, on land, they have great defenses. The Gobi Desert in the north, the impassable Himalayas in the southwest acting as a great wall against India.
Which is why India and China have barely fought, right? It's just too hard to move an army over those mountains.
Exactly. But China's real strategic concern was securing its water. That's why they annexed Tibet.
I always thought of that as a political move.
It's geopolitical survival. Tibet is their water tower. It's the source of the Yellow and Yangtze rivers. They simply cannot risk that water tap falling into hostile hands.
Okay, so they secured their water. But where's the cage?
The cage is on the water. It's called the First Island Chain. It's a string of islands, Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, that are all U.S. allies.
And they form a wall.
A great wall of water. In peacetime, it's fine. But in a conflict, that chain could be locked down, and the Chinese Navy would be blockaded, trapped in the South China Sea.
Which makes Taiwan absolutely critical.
That's why Taiwan is survival, not just politics. It sits right in the middle of that chain. For China, controlling Taiwan is like finding the key to unlock the cage and get out into the open Pacific.
And there's another choke point, an even bigger one.
The Strait of Malacca. It's a massive vulnerability. Something like 80% of China's oil passes through that tiny, narrow strait near Malaysia.
So someone could literally turn off China's lights just by parking a few destroyers there.
Pretty much. Which is why they're so desperately investing in pipelines through places like Burma, trying to create a bypass. It all comes back to geography.
Let's jump continents. Africa. Why is it that Europe industrialized and became wealthy, while Africa, the literal birthplace of humanity, lagged so far behind for so long?
Again, you have to look at the rivers. Europe's rivers, like the Rhine or the Danube, are like long, flat highways. They connect deep into the interior, making it easy to move goods and share ideas.
They fostered trade.
They fostered everything. Now, contrast that with Africa's major rivers, the Congo, the Nigers, the Zambezi. Africa is a series of high plateaus. So as these rivers flow toward the coast, they hit these steep drop-offs.
And you get waterfalls.
Massive waterfalls. You can't sail a boat up a waterfall. This is the broken elevator. You can't get from the ground floor, the ocean, to the upper floors in the interior. It killed continent-wide trade for thousands of years.
So no trade, no exchange of ideas.
Exactly. Cultures developed in these isolated pockets. Europe was a melting pot of ideas flowing along its river highways. Much of Africa was locked in place.
And their coastline didn't help, did it?
Not at all. It's incredibly smooth, which means very few good natural harbors. So even external trade was limited. Then you layer on the Sykes-Picot legacy of Europeans drawing random lines on a map, lumping rival tribes into the same country. It was a recipe for conflict.
It's a similar story in Latin America, isn't it? Why is there no United States of South America?
Geographical fragmentation. The continent is just cut into pieces. You have the Andes, this colossal, impassable mountain range running down one side, and the Amazon rainforest, a giant undeveloped barrier in the middle.
Which leads to the hollow donut analogy.
Right. Most people live on the coastal rim, the donut. The center is mostly hollow, just mountains and jungle. The infrastructure shows it too. The rail lines don't connect countries to each other. They just go from a mine in the interior straight to the coast for export.
There's no incentive to connect Brazil and Peru, for example.
The cost would be astronomical. Even a giant like Brazil struggles. A lot of its coast is a steep cliff called the Grand Escarpment. There's no coastal plain, so even connecting their own coastal cities is incredibly difficult and expensive.
It limits their own national unity, let alone continental unity.
And finally, let's turn to the Middle East, which is a different case. Here, the problem is mainly man-made bad geography.
The Sykes-Picot Agreement.
That's the one. European powers drawing straight lines in the sand, completely ignoring the ancient tribal and religious divides between Sunni, Shia, and Kurd.
They basically locked 3 enemies in a room and called it Iraq.
A perfect description. They lumped totally separate historical regions into one artificial state. The result was, predictably, an unholy mess.
You needed a strongman dictator like Saddam Hussein, a Sunni, to rule by fear just to hold it all together.
And once he was gone, all those ancient divisions just erupted again. But geography still dictates the terms of that conflict. Think about the Sunni population in Iraq.
A Sunni triangle.
If Iraq were to break apart, the Sunni region is landlocked, it's surrounded by sand, and crucially, it has almost none of the oil wealth.
The oil is in the Kurdish north and the Shia south.
Exactly. So the Sunnis would be left with a poor, landlocked, and strategically weak state. This geographic poverty is what fuels their desperate fight to keep control of a unified Iraq.
Okay, this is all incredibly compelling, but I can hear the counterargument. People will say, hang on, what about technology? We have the internet, jets, GPS. Surely geography is dead.
And that's the optimist case. And look, technology is incredibly powerful. It definitely bends the bars of the geographic prison. A U.S. drone can fly from Missouri to Mosul.
But it doesn't break the bars.
It doesn't break them. The Himalayas still stop a tank column from moving between India and China. The internet connects minds, but geography still governs the movement of bodies and resources.
And the Arctic is maybe the best future-facing proof of this.
Absolutely. The ice is melting, opening up the Northwest Passage. That could shorten shipping from Europe to Asia by a week. There are vast oil and gas reserves up there.
So technology is opening a new frontier.
It is, but look at the cost. You're dealing with endless night, 10-foot-thick sea ice, and the insane investment needed just to operate there. Geography still dictates the brutally high price of admission to this new great game.
Which Russia is paying. They're building an entire Arctic army, new bases, nuclear icebreakers.
Because the prize is huge, but the geography makes sure it remains one of the hardest places on Earth to compete.
So to sum it all up, it's like the U.S. got the fully stocked mansion, Russia got the drafty hallway that needs constant defense, and China got the secure but locked house.
And knowing this context allows you, the listener, to move beyond simple political explanations like, oh, that leader is crazy. You start to see the deeper fundamental constraints they're all operating under. Leaders are playing the hand nature dealt them.
And here's a final thought for you to chew on. Think about that American energy independence we mentioned. As the U.S. needs to guarantee the flow of oil from the Persian Gulf less and less, what happens?
The American security umbrella starts to fold.
Exactly. And that waning American attention will force those Gulf nations to look for new allies, maybe regional rivals like Iran, or maybe even China. A massive shift in the global balance of power, all driven by the geology of shale rock in North Dakota.
If you want to understand the invisible forces shaping our world, you need to subscribe to Nonfiction Insights right now.
Click the video on the left to watch more. And seriously, hit that logo circle. We are building the smartest community on YouTube, and we want you in it.
Thanks for watching Nonfiction Insights. See you in the next video.